Good evening, Hyper Spinners. Today we're going to be talking about part 3 to the RGB panel conversion, so get ready. Alright, last but not least, we've got these RGBs that are going to go in the joystick channel. I've got to route out a little bit of wood to basically fit this in there, but the idea is I'm going to route out just a little hole that is on the edge of the joystick hole itself, and we're going to just stick this in there, glue it in there, and then basically the tip of that light will be beating out some light, so it will light up the joystick washer, and it will add a little extra effect. So all we got to do is crimp these 4 RGBs, just like what we've done with the arcade buttons themselves. And so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do the exact same thing what we've been doing with the buttons themselves. Again, it's not terribly complex, it's just time consuming. So we're going to take one of these connectors, break it off here, and we're going to crimp the button here. So again, we're just sliding that into the connector, making sure it's flush up against the end of it. And we're going to take our crimping tool and we're just going to crimp this thing. So we want to make sure that the points, the teeth on the connector are pointing up on the crimp tool itself. Again, this just takes time. It doesn't take a lot of skill. So the very first crimp that I did, I actually stripped the wire entirely. So, just be careful of that. Just make sure the metal is facing on the outside of the crimp tool, so you're actually crimping the connector. We're going to do 2 more here. Pretty good crimp. It's a little blurry there, but yep. And what you can do is just shape it with a needle nose pliers, kind of what you've already seen in the tutorial so far. And we are almost done with the crimp action, and let's get these joysticks installed. It's been a while for me. It's kind of hit or miss with these tutorials as a whole. I've got a family and, got other things going on, and these little side projects are fun, but time consuming. And I just wish I had more time, as all of you, I'm sure. Got one more. All right, so there's the 4th pin here. And I was thinking about putting 3 of these LEDs in the joystick itself, but I discovered that the Ultimate I/O board only allows for, a certain number of RGB connections. So I'm going to put 2 of these on each joystick, and I'm assuming the light distribution will look all right with, 2, 1 on each end, but we're going to give it a shot, see what happens. It's kind of trial by fire here, but I think anything is going to be, a step up to non-RGBs, if you ask me, but we will see. So I'm gonna make sure I can crimp this. Take a look at the crimp itself. And there you have it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a needle nose plier and I'm going to finish off the crimp. See at the ends here, basically right here. I've just got to shape that a little bit. You can see how sometimes, you know, you just got to pinch the ends here just to, you know, tidy it up a little bit. Make sure that it fits the pin itself on the I/O board. So do that real quick. And then we're going to start trying to figure out how to route a little slot for this LED that we're working on right now. I'm honestly a little nervous about it, but I'm sure my Dremel tool that I've got will do just fine. I'm going to go ahead and crimp these other 4 LEDs, and we will take a look at how things go. So there she is. We're just going to plug that into the I/O board just like the buttons. So I'm going to finish the crimping here, and we will see you in the next step. All right, so for the next step, we are routing a couple pieces, or a couple spots where the joysticks are. So basically I took a Dremel tool, and you can see there's just enough to get the wire in there as well as the light. So this is what we're trying to accomplish here. This little guy here, it's going in the slot. So basically the dust catcher for the joystick will illuminate. So you can see there, it fits real nice there. And I'll show you how I did it. So basically you just want enough channel for the wire to fit in there, and then we're gonna just super glue or hot glue the LED right in there. So when you put the control panel back together, the joystick won't actually smash the wires. So, you know, I've got everything plugged into this I/O board, and now what I did was I just took this Dremel tool, which is this guy here, and I just attached one of these little pink things to there, and it basically just sands the wood very quickly. So just kind of be careful. You don't want to get your hands all tied up in that, but you know, this thing basically just spins crazy fast, and yeah, that's it. So that is how I routed the wood, and now we're gonna fire this baby up and have the joystick set up. So I'm gonna go and pause the video, and I'll show off how I attach the servo stick. So the next step on this is just getting the LEDs into the little groove that you ultimately made around the joysticks. So you can see right there, got that nice little groove there. And what I've done is I've just hot glued the LED right in the little spot that I made. So you can see everything is fitting there. And I'm gonna go ahead and install the joystick by just sticking the joystick right into the hole, making sure that the joystick is centered, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, you can see that I've installed the joystick itself. All I did was put the 4 screws in there, and now what you see is this closed right in. And what I've got here is a nice etched disc or joystick washer. All we're going to do is slide it over the top there, so it's got a nice little glow to it. And what we're going to do is just put the top on here. So it's got a little washer that you'll put in the inside of that little joystick top. You just put that right on top and then screw it in. So I'm going to see if I can do that with one hand here. And actually I'm just going to screw it on top here. You just twist it, that's it. So that is the joystick installation. I'm going to do that with the other 2. I've got two servo sticks, which it's going to be a slightly different install, but it's basically the same thing. So I will get you in the next step. Next, if you've got a servo stick, basically we've got a little chip here that supports two servo sticks. Basically the positive and the negative just go right into those screws there. You can see, let's see, +1, -1, and +2, -2 down here. You're just going to stick the end of this. What you have to do is you have to thread, or thread here. You could just take pliers or something and just pull the plastic off to make the wires bare. Or if you've got wire, I'm going to call them cleaners, where you can actually just strip the little plastic off that. All that's doing is you're just sticking it right in there, and you're going to screw the wire right underneath that screw there. So that's the servo stick and how this works. And this isn't attached by any means, but it gives you an idea of how this thing works. Basically this, let me get the little fish out of here for my kids. What we've got here is this little doohickey here. Basically it just moves, and that's what ultimately changes the direction of the joystick here. So you can see there's a little guard here, and this is the 4-way when it's going right on the notches, and when it's 8-way it's going the other way. So I'm trying to do this while I'm holding the phone here. So when you're setting this up, you're just lining this part up with the little notches there, and then you're just sliding the I'm going to call it the tooth here right in there. So the electronics are basically just moving this piece here, and that is ultimately feeding the direction of the 4-way or the 8-way. So this is now set to the 8-way, because when you go up, there's nothing stopping it. There's no tip there. So how you feed this in there is you just slide it in, and you just carefully, put the I'm going to call it the tooth again, just right in the slit there. So you've got that lined up, and then you just mount it just like what you would on the other joystick itself. So you want to make sure that the top part is flush and the plastic part is on the bottom part. So this ends up being flush up against your cabinet, but that's a servo stick. So it's going to be a little tricky when you install it, because you want to make sure that that servo stick, like extra part here, doesn't run into any of the buttons that are in the cabinet itself. So you might have to do some fitting around, and for what it's worth, there is no right side of where this is going to go, because ultimately there's switches at the bottom there, which are here on the corners, and you're going to be basically programming those switches essentially. So we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll get you in the next step here. Is installed, so you see here, that's how it's changing. Once it's all on the board itself, everything will be nice and automatic. So that was a pain to get in, just because of how close quarters it was. And now let's take a look here. So we're gonna put the washer on there, and we are going to stick the, what we'll do is we'll put the washer on here, and we're going to screw this on. Pull up, and there you go. So there's the servo stick, a illuminated servo stick. So that's not looking too bad. I've got to fix that RGB, so I've been messing with the wires, so I've just got to tighten up the wires again, and everything will be fine. So that is looking fantastic. So we'll go on to the next step. I'll get the other servo stick installed, and then I'll mount the boards, and then just verify that all the wires are fitted nice and tight, so the colors turn white when all of the RGB buttons are on. So there you go. Now that I've got all the joysticks installed on the panel, now we've got to daisy chain them and put the wire here and start hooking up all of the switches here. So what we want to do is find the black wire on this, which is the last one here, which is here, and we need to connect that to the daisy chain. So that is here. And you'll find that on the very end of one of these daisy chains, you'll find this little thing here, and that's what we're going to be connecting to that. You can see that it is different than these other ones. See there? And this basically came pre-wired from Ultimarc, and all we got to do is connect the daisy chain and that together, and we're just going to slide that in there, and that's going to connect the daisy chain. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in, as well as the board itself here, into the board here. So there's only one spot for this to go, and you're going to find that it's that long piece right up there, and you just plug that right in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll go on to the next step. Alright, I've gone ahead and plugged in the harness into the board itself. You can see the daisy chain, the black wire here, is closest to that lib or LIBE stamp on the board. So that is there, you can see. But again, the pin itself is blocked off on that harness, so you know you can't mess that up. So now what we're going to do is start, putting these daisy chains on the switches themselves, and all of the daisy chains go on the bottom part of the switch here on each one of these, and we're just going to plug those in. In terms of the actual joysticks themselves, they are going to go on the outsides here and here, and let's see, where's my finger at, and then also right here. So basically the daisy chains will go on the outside of the switches, and it's just going to be on the prong that's bent. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the daisy chains and move on to the next step.